So, hey, MaryAnne, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Uh, great. Thanks for joining me today. So, I have MaryAnne Kochendorfer, and she's a homeschooler and a teacher and a blogger, and she's reviewed the PageReady math product. So, we'll talk a little bit about that. But really, what we wanted to talk about today was a moment in time where things were either went one way or another for math, and how that pivotal moment in her life in her childhood affected her feeling about math going forward in her future. And so I'm going to let you take it from here, and looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us.
All right, thanks. I was thinking about this, and I think when I was a little kid, I really liked math and numbers, and I think a lot of kids do.
Hmm.
And then I remember reaching a point where like math became a boys thing, which I think is also super common.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then I sort of was pretty disinterested. And when I got interested again, it was actually interesting. I mean, I was decent at math, so I would still take good math classes and stuff, but it wasn't my subject.
Mhm.
And then my actually senior year of high school, I had a math teacher who took a really unusual approach. He'd make really hard assignments, really hard tests, but he had a rule where, I would take his test and I would fail his test, but a lot of us would fail his test. It was kind of the expectation. And then he'd say,
Oh.
okay, now I want you to show me what you did wrong and how to fix it. And then you get your points back.
Mhm.
And that was the first
Wow.
time I think um, it was an unusual way to make it happen, but it taught me that math is all about making mistakes and then finding the mistakes, and
Uh-huh.
and it became kind of a puzzle solving. I mean, sometimes it's stressful because it's still grades, and grades are so scary in high school, especially.
Mhm.
But because there was so much room, and he had a very like open door, like come ask me if you have questions. And but if you went to him with questions, then he'd put it back on you, like he'd show you what you needed to ask yourself next instead of just showing you the steps.
Wow.
So for me,
Sounds
that
like a
was
really good teacher. Yeah.
he was fantastic, and it was
Yeah.
very transformational for me. And I definitely saw a huge jump in my math, and in a
Wow.
way that stayed with me through life. So I wish everyone had that kind of a math teacher.
Wow. Yeah, just teaching you how to think, really,
Yeah,
like how to problem solve.
yeah,
Because
because I think up until then I'd gotten in this mode of like memorize the formula, plug it in, but like, and formulas, don't get me wrong, I'm pro formulas,
yeah,
but
yeah, no,
I was just plugging it in without thinking why the formula existed, and that was how I gotten into this math rut that
yeah,
I feel like was limiting how far I could go with it.
yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I can definitely relate to a lot of that story. I know in college we had math classes and economics classes that really pushed you, where the expectation was that you weren't going to be able to figure it out, and then you had to kind of prove things, and it really
Yeah,
made you think. Just it really got you thinking about how to look at problems, differently.
yeah.
So that's interesting. So how do you work with your kids on math? How have you gotten them into this positive growth mindset when they think about math and numbers and the problems and stuff like that?
Yeah. So my kids, I I still have a 14-year-old who's currently stuck in the I don't like math, which she
Mhm.
wasn't always there, and hopefully she'll pull out of it again.
Okay.
I remember being there, and I remember, okay, this is a process, so don't
Yeah.
panic. Um, I invested a lot in like math manipulatives when my kids were small, and just kind of had numbers around and
Mhm.
math games. We played math games. I mean, we're
Mhm.
a nerdy family, but I think if you approach it from a math is fun and it's okay to make mistakes, and real mathematicians make lots of mistakes, and real mathematicians are puzzle solvers and
Yeah.
um, curious and creative in how they go about solving a problem. And so I've just tried to emphasize that with my kids and make it be something that's fun. And also when they start to reach a wall, then it's time to drop it for a while. I mean, you
Mhm.
can come back later the same day even, but
Yeah.
once they're frustrated, you just need to stop for a while.
Yeah.
Take a breather.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, there's, it's true. And at some point, if something's really hard, you might not be able to figure it out. You need help.
Yeah,
Because some things are just too hard, and you just don't know how to, like your teacher, how
yeah,
your teacher gave you something he knew was probably going to be a little bit hard, but he also kind of helped you through the problem solving process so that you didn't feel like you just can't do it.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, since he would be quite honest about the fact that it was probably
mhm,
going to be too hard for most of us, so that opened the door for us to, like, first of all feel challenged to prove him wrong if we
right,
could.
right,
But then if it was too hard, then it wasn't this big shame thing of why
yeah,
can't I do this?
yeah.
So
Well, yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like you're doing a great job with your kids, and they're getting through it and learning a lot. And so, what are some of the things that you liked about the page a day math system? I'm just we haven't talked about this, and
yeah. I thought it was very clever because we, I think, looking at public schools right now, they're not really teaching math facts, and I understand why
yeah,
they're not, because I think we reached a point where we were drilling them to the point of kids hating math, and so now they've dropped them because that's what we kind of do in education. We swing all the way to the right, and then we swing all the way to the left.
mhm,
We don't end up in the middle, and I thought yours was a clever way to kind of have the math facts there, and you're doing the math facts, but it's in a really low stress way, and again,
mhm,
it's in small enough doses that, you just do a page a day and they're pretty quick and they're pretty easy.
mhm,
And they're going to eventually memorize them.
mhm,
But it's not in this stressful, it's not a competitive environment. It's not stressful.
yeah,
If you have a child who loves competition, you could have them timing themselves and try to make their
exactly,
time faster and faster. But for the kid who hates competition, they can still do it. So I
yeah.
thought it was very clever.
Thanks. Yeah, I saw when I was teaching. So when I started teaching fifth grade, I saw that a significant number of the kids still didn't know how to add and subtract
Yeah.
well, which was so alarming, sad, because the kids were really bright. So, and I had 160 kids every single day. So I decided the first week of school that I would assess them and just see where everybody was so I could share it with their parents and tell them what I thought they needed to work on in addition to whatever homework they had. So when I saw that over 50% were having trouble with these basics, it was alarming. And that initial assessment was timed. And you could see the stress go like just shoot up in the classroom, which was also really sad because it's just definitely not what you want. You know, with these math facts, you do need to know them pretty fluently to feel comfortable with like the next level of problems math problems you're going to do. Because if you're doing word problems or pre-algebra or long division, you don't want to be struggling on these basics. So you do need
Yeah.
to become proficient, but really, the only way to become proficient is by practicing. And
Yep.
practice doesn't need to be timed. It just needs to
Yeah.
happen. And it needs to happen over and over again. And I think a lot of people just don't realize how much practice is actually needed to memorize math facts. I think that people just don't know. I definitely did not. And I definitely remember the mistakes that I made by thinking, well, we just did this. I just didn't
Right.
understand why my daughter, because I started out with my daughter, I didn't understand if I showed her how to do something one day, I didn't understand like that didn't mean that she wasn't going to remember the next day, like that she was going to need, 100, 200,
Yeah,
300
like, she's
times of
doing
doing the
great
same
one day,
thing.
the next day, it's like, "Where did this all go?" Right?
Yeah.
But
And
but you're
that's
right,
totally
that's just
normal.
not
I mean,
fair.
that, and that's normal. That's what happens. And then you think about, well, speech, when you're learning how to say milk, you're teaching your child to say milk or anything. I mean, they've heard it thousands of times, when they're little. So then then you start to understand, okay, that's right. Or with reading,
Yeah.
you read with your kids. I mean, when they are infants, and you're
Mhm.
pointing out words, I mean, over and over and over again. There's 365 days a year. If you read a book a day, which a lot of parents probably read quite a bit more than that,
Yeah.
the kids are hearing, at, in, on, and those words over and over and over again, the spelling over and over. So you need the same thing for math. And
Yep.
there's over 600 different basic math facts between addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's
It
a
is.
lot. So I think people just don't realize the amount that's needed, and there isn't a curriculum out there with with repetition
Right.
like that. That doesn't exist, because when people hear curriculum, they hear like that's like a year of different
Mhm.
topics, but within that one topic, so it's, you don't learn it one week, you learn it, over time, and each each skill, each new math fact, you need a lot of practice with. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's why I think kids are struggling, because they just don't have that on top of the curriculum, because it really, like, schools don't really have time to do that.
Yes. Well, and schools right now are very reading focused,
Yeah,
and um that would be okay if it weren't. I feel like at least our local elementary school, I'm like, you spend all morning on reading and then you have like 1 hour left after lunch for everything else. Like,
right.
what?
Yeah,
There's a lot of other learning. I love books. If you read my blog, you know I love books. You know
yeah,
I'm very reading and literacy and all of that. But I'm also very pro science and math. And
yeah,
if you can get the kids really passionate about those things early on, and that's why I think your curriculum is useful, whether you're a homeschooler or you're a public school parent who wants your child to have a really solid math foundation.
mhm,
And I also think these math facts, like, we're thinking about it in terms of higher level math, but we're also thinking of it in terms of, I'm walking through the grocery store and I have a budget. And if I
yeah,
know my math facts, then it's really easy to stick to that budget. Where if I don't, then it's much more challenging. And
absolutely, and definitely, and also that math sense, I think,
yeah,
only comes once you actually have done this practice and memorization over and over and
yeah,
over again. Like, I don't think you can have number sense unless you have memorized certain things. And I know there's a lot when people hear memorize, but you do memorize things. I mean, you memorize words, you memorize letters. There's a lot you have to memorize before you can
yeah,
actually start to put it all together and analyze. And I think that piece is also, there's like this thing against the word memorization, but memorization is so important. And if you memorize, that doesn't mean you only memorize.
right.
You're going to do other things too, but you do have to have that, or else the kids will just struggle and they just won't be able to get there. So that when you go to the supermarket, you can you have this sense for, okay, well, have I gone over $50? Like, you
Yes,
just know, even
exactly.
though you haven't actually added anything up, but you just know, where somebody else, that doesn't have that math sense really won't know. And
Yeah. And so it can just be
so,
a lot of extra. I think it just, if you don't know it, it creates a lot of extra tasks throughout adult life in really small ways.
yeah,
But
yeah,
those small ways add up. I also like how you've created such a portable math program. I like it's all these little booklets because I think, this way it's something you can have in the car and you're sitting in the car waiting for an older sibling for
mhm,
10 minutes and they can get their math done. And
yeah,
it's not a big hunky math book that you have to, chunky math book that you
yeah,
have to carry everywhere, but it's small and it's portable. And
yeah. And, when I was creating them, I created them, alongside families, because in the beginning, it was different. It was bigger and heavier. And then I was watching kids play with it in their hands, because I wanted to be colorful and playful.
yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, this has to be really small. Like, a child's hand is really small. A big, the books that are made for kids, outside of a lot of picture books, all the education books that are made for kids are not really made for kids, because
I know it's
they're
strange,
not
isn't it?
they're not made for a child's hand.
Yeah.
So I did notice that once I cut it down the size and I made it a square, more of a square shape,
Mhm.
kids would actually start running around with the book in their hand, forgetting that they had it in their hand. Just like
Mhm.
if they had a stuffed animal and then they got distracted and did something else, they wouldn't necessarily put the stuffed animal down. They'd just run around with it. And when I saw that, then I knew I got the right size, because it
Yeah, no, I think you're
wasn't
doing for
heavy.
math. I think you're doing for math books what Bob Books did for early readers.
Mhm.
It's the same sort of idea where, all of a sudden it's a child size and it's a child's weight and it just makes it feel accessible.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's
well
so
done.
important, because you want them to feel part of it, not intimidated. And so, yeah, so that's the goal. Yeah, to make it feel fun, and fun for the parent. I mean, if it's not fun for the parent,
Yes.
you
Oh,
know,
I know.
I
We have
think
to fight our
actually,
kids over other things. We don't need it to be this too.
yeah, I think first and foremost, it really has to be fun for the parent, and eye catching and stuff like that. So,
Mm.
well, thank you for sharing all this. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you sharing your math moment and what happened with you when you were younger, and your thoughts and your review and your time with the PGD math system. So thank you. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you. This has been great, and I think it's a great product. So
Thanks.
congratulations on coming up with it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. And have a great day. Stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thanks so
Right.
much. Have a
Thanks.
good day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.